Alaska, a land where the value of wild country has not been forgotten. Of Alaska's 365 million acres, more than half is set aside as wilderness and wildlife refuges, state and national parks. It is a wild place, much of it undisturbed by the presence of man. Every summer, the state's population more than doubles as shutterbugs and wildlife lovers gather to experience one of the last places on Earth where wildlife is still wild. A good place to start is Denali National Park. At 6 million acres, there's lots of room to roam in the shadow of the tallest mountain in North America, Denali, or the Great One. Here, you might glimpse one of Denali's wolf packs. These highly social animals usually live in packs that include parents and pups. Hunted to near extinction in the lower 48, wolf populations are healthy throughout Alaska and can be found in 85% of the state. Wolves can travel great distances. The average size of a pack's territory is about 600 square miles. They may travel 20 miles a day in search of food. The only Alaskan animal that travels farther than the wolf is the caribou. If they look like Santa's reindeer, that's because they are. A reindeer is a caribou that has been domesticated. There are thought to be nearly 1 million caribou in Alaska in 32 separate herds. Like most herd animals, caribou must keep moving to find food. Some will cover 3,000 miles a year, the greatest distances of any land mammal on Earth. Caribou tend to stick to the same migratory routes. For generations, Alaska natives have depended on the predictable nature of the migration to sustain their villages. High on the alpine ridges, you'll find Alaska's most sure-footed animals, the Dall sheep. Their ability to move around Alaska's steepest terrain keeps them safe from predators. The males are called rams, identified by their massive curled horns. It takes 7 to 8 years for a ram's horns to form a complete curl. The horn is made of keratin, the same material as your fingernail. The females are called ewes. They give birth to lambs on these steep and rocky delivery rooms. And believe it or not, the young daredevils are walking the ridges just hours after being born. Mountain goats are often confused with Dall sheep, especially from a distance. But get close enough, and you can make out their longer hair, black horns, and the telltale beards under their chins. The males are called billies, and in the dark winter months they'll battle each other for the attention of the nannies, or female goats. Like Dall sheep, mountain goats prefer to stick to the higher elevations where they dine on a variety of grasses and alpine vegetation. No Alaska wildlife experience would be complete without a moose sighting, and let's face it, they're hard to miss. They're the largest member of the deer family, and the moose in Alaska are the biggest in the world. The big bulls will grow antlers up to 5 feet wide and tip the scales at 1,600 pounds, and it's no wonder. The animals are eating machines, feeding almost every waking minute. Moose are so plentiful that you'll often find them wandering the front yards of Anchorage. Don't bother calling animal control. Remember, this is Alaska. It's hard to believe that these animals are related to moose. The Sitka black-tailed deer are most commonly found in the wet coastal rainforest of southeast Alaska. At 80 pounds, they are a fraction the size of their cousin, the moose. The deer population in Alaska fluctuates with the severity of the weather. Harsh winters can decimate a population. But without pressure from predators, the black-tailed deer have proven prolific, and their numbers typically recover rapidly. To many, this is the sound of Alaska. Numbering more than 30,000, there are more bald eagles in Alaska than anywhere else in the United States. As dignified as it looks with its distinguished white-headed tail, the bald eagle is both a scavenger and hunter. It is Alaska's largest resident bird of prey, with a wingspan measuring up to 7.5 feet. Every winter, some 3,000 eagles gather in the Chilkat Bald Eagle Preserve near Haines to feast on a late run of salmon. Eagles were not always so beloved in the last frontier. At the turn of the century, Alaska put a bounty on bald eagles. More than 100,000 of these magnificent birds were killed before the bounty was lifted in 1953. When Alaska became a state in 1959, the bald eagle came under federal protection as befitting the nation's symbol of independence. There are more than 400 species of birds that live or migrate to Alaska. Alaska is the breeding ground for untold millions of ducks, geese, and swans. Every spring, clouds of shorebirds return to the beaches of south-central Alaska. Some travel unimaginable distances, but none further than the Arctic tern, which flies 20,000 miles a year round trip from its winter grounds in Antarctica. Talk about frequent flyers. Perhaps no bird is more beloved in Alaska than the puffin. Dubbed sea parrots by early sailors, the horned puffins nest in crevices on Alaska's rocky shorelines. With their short wingspans, takeoffs and landings are a touch-and-go matter. These birds are actually built for swimming. They literally fly underwater in search of food. Below the puffin's rocky homestead, you'll often find a haul out for the Steller sea lion. Some say they're called sea lions because of their resemblance to the kings of the jungle in Africa. Others say it's because of their distinctive voice. A male sea lion can grow to over 10 feet in length and weigh more than 1,200 pounds. While still healthy in southeast Alaska, since the 1970s, the sea lion populations from Prince William Sound to Alaska's Aleutian Chain have declined by more than 70%. In 1997, this western population of Steller sea lion was declared an endangered species. Scientists have yet to determine the exact cause of this magnificent animal's decline. The northern fur seal is a close cousin of the sea lion. They were almost hunted to extinction by the Russians in the 1800s. Alaska's Pribilof Islands are breeding grounds for more than 2/3 of the world's population of northern fur seals. Each summer, hundreds of thousands return to breed and give birth. While fur seals were attractive targets for Russian hunters, it was the sea otter which led to the early colonization of Alaska. After nearly wiping out the sea otter population, Russia had little use for Alaska and sold it to the United States for less than 2 cents an acre. Once protected by treaty in 1911, Alaska's sea otter population rebounded to more than 100,000 by the mid-1980s. Unfortunately, like the sea lion, their numbers in western Alaska have crashed by 70%. Members of the weasel family, sea otters typically stay close to home. You'll often find them enjoying family picnics of a dozen or more, feasting on clams, sea urchins, and crab. One of Alaska's most beloved summer visitors is the humpback whale. These gentle giants come to Alaska's waters to feed. They'll gorge themselves on herring and krill, eating up to a ton of food a day. When you see a humpback tail fluke, it usually indicates a deep dive. They may stay submerged for up to 30 minutes, but when the mood strikes them, Well, humpbacks like to catch some air. The humpback's only known predator is the orca, or killer whale. Killer whales aren't really whales at all, but the largest members of the dolphin family. Males can reach up to 30 feet in length. They're identified by their long dorsal fin, which can be 6 feet high. These highly intelligent animals hunt in packs in all the waters of Alaska. With no known predators, they are the undisputed kings of the sea. Black bears are the smallest of Alaska's bears. The average male weighs just 200 pounds. The bears hibernate over the winter and will lose up to 20% of their body fat. When they emerge in the spring, they are ready to feed, first on salmon and later on fields of blueberries, a rich source of carbohydrates necessary for their long winter nap. Which brings us to the undisputed heavyweights of Alaska, the Great Alaska Grizzly, or brown bear. Once listed as separate species, scientists now consider them the same, though Alaskans reserve the term grizzly for those that roam the interior, and the term brown bear for those that make their home in Alaska's coastal forests. Only the brown bears isolated on Kodiak Island are considered a subspecies. At 12 to 1,500 pounds, they are the largest bears in the world. With a population estimated at 30,000, 98% of all brown bears in the United States are in Alaska. In Denali National Park, as throughout the interior, the grizzly subsist on what they can scratch from the ground. Though considered carnivores, these bears subsist mainly on berries, grasses, and the occasional ground squirrel. But the brown bears lucky enough to live near Alaska's salmon streams have a chance to gorge themselves on the summer runs of sockeye, coho, and chum salmon. Which brings us to the lords of the tundra. In the Inupiaq language, Nanook, or polar bear. Polar bears prowl the sea ice above Alaska's Arctic Circle. These giants can weigh up to 1,500 pounds. From the windswept tundra of the North Slope to the rocky islands of the Bering Sea, from the gold-rich streams of the interior to the emerald waters of the Inside Passage. Here is a place where nature has found balance, where the circle of life comes full circle, where the word wild is defined in this place, Alaska.